I never imagined that the summer I spent at my best friend's house would be the season that changed everything about how I understood love, desire, and betrayal. When I first packed my suitcase and agreed to stay with her family for a few weeks, I thought it would be nothing more than laughter, late-night talks, and afternoons by the pool. What I didn't expect was to fall under the quiet, magnetic pull of her father, a man I had always regarded as someone steady, mature, and far outside the realm of temptation. But the heart doesn't ask for permission, and neither does desire when it slips quietly into a room you thought was safe. He wasn't like the men my age who stumbled through conversations and looked at me as though I were a prize to win. He carried himself differently, with a kind of confidence that comes from years of experience, from knowing exactly who you are in the world and how others see you. His voice had a calm, steady weight that settled in the air, and his eyes, sharp, attentive, and yet sometimes softened by humor, lingered on me a little longer than they should have. At first, I told myself I was imagining it, that the way his gaze followed me across the kitchen or how he leaned a little closer when I spoke was simply his warm personality. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just kindness. Something else hummed between us, low and dangerous, like a secret chord only the two of us could hear. The first time I truly noticed it, we were sitting out on the back patio one evening. My friend had gone upstairs to take a call, leaving the two of us with glasses of wine, the night air warm and thick around us. The cicadas droned in the distance, and the glow from the porch light carved his face in sharp relief. He asked me about school, about my plans, and I answered, though I was more distracted by the way he listened. Really listened. My own father had never been much of a talker, and here was a man leaning toward me, elbows on the table, eyes fixed on me as if my words mattered. When I laughed at something he said, he reached across the table, covering my hand with his own, just for a second. The heat from his palm burned into me. It was innocent enough, just a gesture to emphasize a joke, but the warmth lingered long after he pulled back. I excused myself a moment later, pretending I was tired, but I lay awake that night with the memory of that brief touch replaying in my mind, a loop I couldn't shut off. From then on, it was like an invisible thread tied us together. Little things began to happen. He'd pass me in the hallway, and his hand would graze my shoulder, light enough to pass as accidental but heavy enough that I felt it for hours. He'd stand close behind me when I was at the counter, reaching for something on a shelf, his breath brushing the side of my neck. When we spoke, our eyes locked too long, as though neither of us wanted to be the first to break away. I fought it, at least at first. Every time my chest fluttered at the sound of his footsteps, I reminded myself that this was my best friend's father, that nothing good could come of letting my imagination run wild. But desire is a stubborn thing, and it doesn't obey reason. The more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it became, filling the space between us with a charge so powerful I could feel it in my skin. The night it finally crossed the line started like any other. We had all gathered in the living room, watching a movie. My friend had stretched out across the couch, eventually drifting into sleep, her head pillowed against the armrest. I sat on the floor with a blanket wrapped around me, and he sat behind me in the armchair. About halfway through the movie, I felt it, the faint brush of his fingers against my hair. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but then it happened again, slow and deliberate. His touch light enough that it could be mistaken for absent-mindedness. My heart pounded, and I kept my eyes glued to the screen, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. When the movie ended, he offered to help me carry the popcorn bowl back to the kitchen. My friend was still asleep, oblivious, and the house was quiet except for the low hum of the air conditioner. In the kitchen, I set the bowl on the counter, and when I turned, he was closer than I expected. Too close. I froze, my back against the counter, his body just inches from mine. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His eyes searched mine, and in that silence, everything we hadn't said hung heavy between us. "I shouldn't," he murmured, though his hand lifted to brush a strand of hair from my face. The warmth of his fingers on my cheek sent a shiver down my spine. "I know," I whispered back, though I didn't step away. "I couldn't." And then his lips were on mine, gentle at first, testing, as if waiting for me to push him back. But I didn't. I melted into him, the dam of restraint breaking all at once. His kiss deepened, hungry now, and I clutched the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer. The kitchen seemed to vanish around us. There was only his mouth on mine, his hands cradling my face, the rush of something I had never felt before. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, the reality of what we'd done hit me. My heart raced with a mix of guilt and exhilaration. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, his chest rising and falling. "This can't happen," he said, though his voice trembled in a way that betrayed his own doubt. "I know," I repeated, though the taste of him lingered on my lips, and deep inside, I already knew that one kiss would never be enough. That night, I lay awake again, but this time it wasn't just the memory of a touch or a look. It was the memory of his mouth, his breath, the way his hands had held me as though he couldn't let go. I told myself we would stop, that it had been a moment of weakness. But even then, I think I knew the truth. We had already crossed a line, and there was no going back.